Good Friday, everybody, and welcome to the Weekly Whistle. I'm your host, Ahad, again, and with me is Mudassir Anwar, joining us for another conversation on technology. So, you might have known already that Anwar or Mudassir is really, really interested in technology. So, I always try to bring him in when I want to talk him something about technology. So, today, the topic that I have on hand is about being always online and the value of disconnecting in this always connected world. So, before we continue on, what are your initial thoughts on the topic?
I think the timing that you chose for this topic is really interesting because it was, I think, a couple of days ago that the Fold 5 and the Flip 5 was released. I was just watching the review
The,
actually
the,
and
the new screen is
quite
amazing.
fascinating.
It's amazing, to be honest. I'm jealous that I did not have that one. The Fold 3 was annoying. I had the Fold 3. The whole half screen just makes everything much more amazing.
And it's so fascinating that it's so common now that a glass phone folds in two halves, and it's the fifth iteration of it. It's quite unbelievable that we've come so far, and we take all of this for granted. Like it's so amazing that glass is getting folded in two halves. I'm like, I cannot wrap my head around it till yet.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah, continue.
yeah. But I think we're talking about social media in particular today.
Oh, not just social media, but just generally being online. So, as a story
Okay.
I was sharing when we were offline, right? That my little one is born, and she's just barely a few days old, like a week old, and I'm recording everything. Literally at 6 a.m., I'm half asleep, and I'm feeding her milk, and the first thing I do is I pick up my phone and I record the starting time of okay, she's drinking milk now. So it's such a second nature for us to always use technology for everything, and my problem with that is sometimes we're not intentional about it. And that's basically what I want to talk about.
Yeah, I think the cons of technology are like very, very apparent. I think, uh, but I also think that we were heading into a direction as species that there would have been a time that we've achieved all the basic needs. We have food on our tables, we have um, shelter, we have everything that we need. So I think it was bound to happen that we enter into a stage where doing something just for the heck of it and not like it's not making our lives it is making our lives easy, but it's also not impacting us in a way that we cannot absolutely live without it, like being always online. But I also feel like it was inevitable in one way or the other.
I think so as well. I think technology has always been a part of society, right? If you look at the industrial revolution, and even agriculture was a technology in itself, right? That gave us what we are today, the organized societies. But I feel like the intentionality is important now, because before, those technologies were still analog. And what I mean by that is you still had a choice to do agriculture, right? You still had a choice to
Yeah.
make factories. Now it feels like you don't have a choice anymore. It's so embedded into your lifestyle that you're using it without even being aware that you're using it. A good example would be my phone, right? This little thing has made my life so much easier, but on the same time, I pick up my phone 144 times a day. That's what my app told me. It said 144 times a day. And you can imagine that's a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't even need to. I just keep opening WhatsApp, and WhatsApp is not even like Instagram or Twitter that you swipe down and it refreshes. It's just there. If there is nothing there, there will be nothing there. But I still, every 30 minutes, I check again. Oh, did someone message me? And you know why I do that? Because I turned off the notifications, because I didn't want to be distracted. So you see the problem.
I know, I get that. And again, I'm not saying it's not harmful. It is harmful. There's no denying that. But sometimes we're having so much conversation about the tech and social media alone that we forget the main problem that's causing all of this. Because we're not using social media because I mean there was a need because we are social animals and we like to interact, but there are a lot of the time there are problems that are related to our own mental health. That, for example, you checking your phone is something, it's like fidgeting, where it's a common thing that we all witness because this constant anxiety makes us want to do something. Sometimes it's a different problem that is being, I would say, exaggerated by social media because we're just getting into the loop and we're not being able to figure out what's wrong. But I also think that sometimes just calling social media the bad actor, we ignore the main problem that's causing these things.
I like where you're going, but I would push back a little bit because the argument sounds a lot like guns don't kill people, people kill people, right? That's the argument how it sounds like. And you know the problem with that argument. I feel like social media is designed in a way to exploit your human weaknesses. The dopamine hit that you get by always being there and showing your best self, it's by design. It's a feature, not a bug. The like thing was a feature, not a bug. These things were designed in a way to tap into your physiological and psychological biases to make you addicted. So that's the anxiety that is coming. Don't you think there might be a correlation? And I know your answer already because you'd be like, yeah, we were not recording mental health back then. So we don't know
Yeah.
if it was there or not. But if you look at how it's been going, even in the world of recording everything, right? Back in the days when phones were just novel for some people, and now when it's common for everyone, you see an increase in mental health problems. And my argument with that is not just recording is more now, because in the last 20 years, recording has been relatively more normal, but also the fact that it's becoming difficult for people to disassociate from being online all the time or social media all the time and be able to focus on themselves. Mental health is a problem. Anxiety amongst teens is a problem. Body health issues are a problem. And I think all of that is not just our own biases, right? It is something that has been propagated by social media.
Again, I think there's always a need to be for a thing so easy and so revolutionary to be regulated. I know regulation on social media or just censoring is a very big topic in itself, and how we do it is a separate thing. But I also think that something that is so beneficial would have to have its arms. So you quoted the example of guns not killing people, people killing people. That's right, but I wouldn't have that many advantages for guns. But if you look at social media, um, like WhatsApp isn't a huge thing in US. I mean, people still use it, but if you come to this Asian side of things, WhatsApp is literally responsible for most of the businesses that we're getting. We're having communications through it, we're selling things to it, and just as a medium, WhatsApp is huge. Similarly, the Facebook marketplace, and just having to not having to go outside and put in a lot of hours to research things. We just go online and find out things in a click. And again, I know it has its own harms as well, that misinformation keeps spreading, and there's this post-truth era that we're struggling with. But it has given us a lot of advantages as well, and I see so many people around me that are being benefited by it. And more than anything else, I think one of the one of the most fascinating things for me is the advent of TikTok and the vertical video. I know a lot of people have a lot of hate for it, and I get it why it's so hated upon. But I also think it is revolutionizing social media in a way that everyone from every income level can use it. You just have to have a phone with a camera, and you can see so many people from financially struggling background, and they're not well off, but they're making content and they're making a living out of it, which is amazing. I think that is a huge plus that social media has offered us.
Yeah, I agree with that. And but there are a couple of points here we can discuss already. So
Yeah.
I agree with the fact that social media's benefits are there, but the argument that the pros outweigh the cons, so we should be okay with it, is not does not set well with me. Right? It should be like, okay, the pros are great, but can we limit the cons? Right? As I said, a lot of things are features, not bugs. So you don't need the like button. And Instagram tried to remove the like button, but then the people had a backlash because the influencers were like, "This is how we make our money." By people as sponsors look at their likes and views and they go like, "Okay, this person is has a reach, so I will pay the money." So the influencers were also a bit involved in that decision making and the pushback, because I remember now there's a choice. Now we have a choice. You can hide the likes or you not hide the likes, but a lot of people keep the likes on because that's the way they increase their reach. But that constant hit that comes from the dopamine of looking at the likes and everything is a very documented thing. And to go back to vertical videos, same issue. If you notice, our attention span is being trained to become less and less and less. So the advent of short form video is just a way of saying that, okay, You need to be entertained, and that again, the swiping, the endless swiping, is also a feature, not a bug, on purpose to
Yeah,
keep you addicted. If it was important to do social media, which for all the reasons you said, that's fine,
yeah.
but then you don't need to have an infinite feed. The infinite feed does not add any value whatsoever, because a person who needs to search or who's conscious about something will just find it. It can go into the explore tab, they can do something, they can look for exactly the thing they need to look for. But this endless thing is there because they want to keep you there, the eyeballs on the phone, so that they can sell their advertising revenue. And for me, that part becomes a bit malicious, because that's on purpose. You're training a generation of people to have less attention span, more insecurities, and these are all not intentional. Maybe 10 years ago, if you look at 2010, 14, when Facebook and everything was booming, maybe they did not know the second and third order consequences of their actions, but now they do. Now I think everyone is pretty clear in knowing what social media does, and that is exactly why you have movies and videos coming out talking to you about turn off the YouTube algorithm. I actually have turned off the YouTube algorithm. My privacy and my history is all off. So I never go on YouTube's rabbit hole. You know, that's a thing, right? The YouTube rabbit hole. I never go into it because all I see is my subscriptions. And that's it. If I open my subscription video on the right, I only see my subscription videos or random stuff, not the videos that I'm clicking having an impact on my up next feed. And that helps me reduce my YouTube time. Now I only am intentional that I'm in the shower. I'm like, okay, what is my feed? I have new 5 videos. Let me finish these 5 videos and I'm done with YouTube. Being more intentional is my point of view. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I think this point is valid. I wouldn't say that again, like I started, social media and tech has its harms, but I also think that to control it is about how much can you self monitor. I think you're very good at it. You keep telling me ways that you limited social media, how you were just telling me before we started recording that you tend to turn your phone off and the all of the apps are off before 9 a.m, so you can do stuff like walking or reading a book, and that's brilliant. But it's not because anything has helped you, it's because it's you have that power to self monitor, and you're accountable to yourself. I think a lot of people struggle with it, and social media being so easy, the infinite scroll that you mentioned, it's so easy to go there and keep scrolling that it's hard to resist that. I get it, but I also think that anything that we do and any advancement that we take would have its cons. Something that is so revolutionary in a way that you're getting so much out of it. I'm not denying the cons, but I'm saying there are ways to control it. And uh, again, the thing which I was trying to get at was again, what you tend to do and how you want to spend your time is your own discretion. I get it. You value reading a book more. But for someone who doesn't have those privileges to go outside, and especially from a country like Pakistan, where it's not that easy to go out and get that fresh air that you might get in the Netherlands. But so I understand that there are advantages that people are getting, but it's self monitoring and self accountability that we need to learn and limit the harms that it's giving us, and while also making full use of the benefits that it has to offer.
I agree, and I think that's mostly the main topic we want to get into about intentional use. But before that, I'm loving the fact that we are actually on the opposite sides of this, because that means there is a proper room for discourse. So I will push you back one more time before you go into intentional living. I feel like your emphasis on self-monitoring is too optimistic or too idealistic, because if that was easy, then we would say the same for, as I said, for guns, but we would also say the same for drug users, right? The problem with drugs off the market is that you don't want to make it easy for anyone to get, right? Because they're addictive. The idea is the same. You're like, you know what, I want to put obstacles in place so that people don't get addicted. There was a whole opioid crisis in the US because it was so easy to get opioids. The whole gun crisis is because it's so easy. If you look at how uh, who are the Democrats are trying to limit gun use, they're not banning them per se. They're just saying that, why don't you add background checks? Why don't you add some obstacles so the person who is like in a high fire mood to shoot someone has to go through some checks, and then by that time he might be calmed down. I'm a man of systems, and I believe with social media that is their snake up the sleeve. that it looks so easy. The benefits are amazing, that oh, anyone with a phone anywhere around the world can connect, can build an audience, can make money. You have so many people who are doing stuff which I really, really appreciate. Like, for example, lost arts of carpentry, woodworking, building sand houses. These people on YouTube have millions and millions of followers. There's this person who just goes and mows lawns. I'm not even joking. Have you heard about this guy?
I have
This
no.
person just goes and mows lawns all around the US or somewhere, and he literally tells the owner of the house that I will do it for free because my followers are going to pay for it. They want to see me mow a lawn. So he goes to the craziest houses with craziest grass, and he just mows the lawn for free. And because of the views and subscriptions, he gets the money. His followers are happy because they find it calming that someone is mowing a lawn, and the person whose lawn is being mowed is also happy because he's getting a free service, or she's getting a free service. So amazing system, right?
Yeah.
But the problem here is the system is very easy for you to use, and then a lot of people who might be at risk or who can become at risk, the probability goes higher. There's a reason why for children they're trying to limit social media, right? They're saying you need to stop with this. There was a study in TikTok that the moment you sign up on TikTok and put your age as 12-year-old or 13-year-old and a girl on the infinite feed, the first few things you see are body dysmorphia. There was a study based on that, that immediately after that you see things on how to get slimmer and is your body not good enough and all of that stuff. You immediately start seeing before you even start following something. There was the research done by some academics, and these are the things that bother me. That being a man of systems, I feel like they should have systems in place. And I'm also a man of institutions, right? I believe the individual cannot do much than an institution. When you have big companies and big organizations, they should help you, the person, in becoming a better person, rather than making it reliant on you that hey, self monitor, you got this. And that leads to more problems. So that is my last pushback. So what are your thoughts on that, and when we're going to move into the main topic?
I think this problem would exist for everything. The advent of wheel or the industrial revolution. Sure, you're getting a lot of things made very easily and made in bulk and a lot cheaper than what you used to get before. But that also means that there have been harms to the climate. We're literally struggling we're having an existential crisis right now. So I think this problem exists in every new invention, every new innovation. I'm not denying the cons of it, but it's about how you use it. Um, Again, this might be a segue to the next topic we were thinking of discussing. But now that Fediverse is a thing, there's a thing called, like, you'll have separate servers, and if you're against anything related to violence, or you're very against um, I don't know, like
Animal killing,
any
animal
policy
killing.
or
Yeah,
any point. Yeah,
yeah.
you're against. So you can choose a separate server where the things you're okay with, the that owner of that server is also okay with. You can go there. Again, I know it would also be misused, but you have the choice to pick and choose where you want to go. So that's one thing. Um, the body dysmorphia thing, I think that's again a very valid point, but you might be happy to hear that there's this policy that is in the works in the US, that the targeted ads or targeted anything wouldn't be a part of social media if you're below the age of 18, which is the normal minimum age for an
Yeah,
adult.
that's pretty good.
So I think that is a good thing. So I'm not against regulations, although I have my concerns about who makes the rules and how it's done. But I also think that sometimes criticizing it, we forget how much benefit we're getting out of it, and we get too critical to the point where we don't realize that every innovation and every new thing would have its harms. That's how the
Yeah,
world works.
indeed, indeed. But for me, the biggest problem about this particular innovation is the scale. Every innovation has its harms, but the scale, because it's digital, so easily deployable, you see the scale makes the magnitude a bit higher. And I think that's why my focus is a lot on those things. But yes, I understand completely that in institutions can be flawed, and that I think it's a process of iteration that you keep going and building and building and improving your institutions so that they can make better decisions, because that's what you do as as a citizen of a country, right? You vote because you want to offload your thinking to someone else. You're like, you know what, I
Yeah.
trust this person, they know what's good for me. And I'm hoping that they can also do this on a digital RAM, because with Fediverse, as you're already saying, although this is a digression, I don't want to go too much into it, but this already is showing me a lot of problems. If you have a server with only like-minded people are showing up, you can imagine the echo chambers are getting bigger and bigger, and everyone is in their own safe space, and then no one is willing to discuss with the other side, and that will open up a whole host of other problems. But we can talk about that in the next topic. Let's
Yeah.
move into the main gist of the topic. So we agree that there are problems with being always connected. Social media is just an idea. You can also have LinkedIn. Well, technically that's also social media, but you can also have like other domains, like having technology, or like a smart home, or something like always reliant on technology for whatever you need. My point is, and you also said, till the institutions are there and support systems are there, you might have to self monitor. And I personally believe systems are better than willpower, because willpower will break. And my systems, you might say it in a way that, oh, it looks great that I have this system, but almost every other day I have broken the system, because I'm like, you know what, I'm up till 1 because the baby hasn't slept yet. Let me just see if someone has messaged me, or let me see if there's something new. So it happens every now and then. But the idea is, more often than not, it doesn't happen, because when I see the grayscale and when I try to click on something, it says, oh, it's locked. I then have a choice. I'm like, I can either like swipe down and then uncheck the routine so that it opens everything up, or I can be like, you know what, I'll keep it down. I'll focus on something else. So that extra barrier really, really helps. So let's move into the self monitoring aspect. That
Yeah.
what can we do in trying to make our life a little bit less always on? So what are your thoughts on always on? Do you think there are benefits of those things, and what do you think could be some tips and tricks you can share in trying to disconnect?
I think being a tech nerd, and like I mentioned, the Flip 5 and Fold 5 before,
Yeah.
um, especially the Flip 5. Although the screen the outside screen is starting to get bigger to the point like
Yeah,
you
that kind of
you
breaks the
can.
purpose, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I still like the idea that there's a mini screen and you can do the necessary tasks with it. But I'm sure you won't get into that the scrolling loop with a small screen. So
Yeah,
what it does is you can check your notification and you can do the necessary things. And even if you want to do something that requires a lot of social media engaging, when you're doing it on a small screen, there's again that layer thing that you were talking about. Something that is stopping you firsthand. Like the more barriers there are, the better it is for you. So I think that becomes one of the barriers. So I think again, that still requires your own willpower, but that's a good way to do things. Again, the technology is getting weird in a way that now that your watch was a thing, like you can make calls with it, you can even message with it, and it could have all those cellular abilities. But now that the watch bands are getting big, the watch dials are getting big, that is also getting difficult. But I like the idea of making more layers to this experience that you're getting.
yeah, indeed. I think the more you try to f- place obstacles on the way, the more intentional you can be of your use. So being a tech nerd, you are intentional of your use. You look at that screen and you go like, you know what, I'm going to use it. I know why I'm going to use it, and that helps. For me, when I had the flip phone, the idea that I got the flip phone, that was because I want to limit my phone usage. I was like, you know
Yeah.
what, this is going to be a barrier to entry, but it didn't. Every single time I would just
I mean,
open it and use it.
it's a beautiful phone as well. You cannot deny that,
It
right?
isn't a wonderful phone, but the whole point of it being closed is that I don't get to use it much, right? And that
Yeah.
really helped. Now with the screen on the outside, kind of makes that difficult, because then you can immediately
Yeah.
just click and you see notifications. So one thing that I always recommend to people when I say that, okay, you want to disconnect a little bit, is just turn off all notifications. They're not important. The whole point of notifications is that they're trying to grab your attention. But if you are intentional about your use of technology, why would you need notifications? You don't need a notification to eat, right? You don't need a notification to sleep. You don't need a notification when you want to go meet a loved one or call a loved one. It comes to you. You're like, you know what, I'm missing this person. That thought comes into your head. So like that, you also have to like find a way to not let the notifications direct you in your day, but you direct the notifications in your day. That, you know what, I'm going to close this down, and whenever I feel ready, maybe according to a schedule, at 3 p.m., I'm going to check WhatsApp. Then I'm going to open and I'm going to reply to people in a batch, and then again I'm going to close and I'm going to look at it a few days later. To be fair, still cannot do it. I've tried so hard. I've tried so hard. With mails I can do it now, but
Yeah.
with WhatsApp, that's my only. So I don't have Insta, social, no social media on my phone.
yeah.
only WhatsApp. And that still does like 14 hours a week of WhatsApp, and I don't know how to reduce it. So
I mean, it's amazing how this podcast is going to go on YouTube, and you'll find a few reels on it on Instagram, but the creator of it doesn't use Instagram.
doesn't use
That's very
WhatsApp.
sad.
It's ironic to begin with, right? But
Yeah,
it's so difficult to, as you said, it's so difficult to get a reach in this day and age without being online.
yeah,
But if I am online, I always just check the likes. Right now, the video there's a reel that went live an hour ago, and already on my computer, I opened Instagram like 3 times just to check. Oh
yeah.
look, oh another like, oh another like, and this is what I have a problem with. You get it, and that's why I don't keep it on my phone. Only when I'm sitting on a computer, then I check all my social medias, and then I close it down. But even with that, it's a problem that I do it every few hours.
I think again, I might go to the initial point that I made. To begin with, the thing, these problems are our own. This external validation that we need, the likes that we need, or just knowing how many people want to see my face, how many people want to hear what I'm saying, it's all connected to um, the lack of self love that you have for yourself. If you're satisfied with yourself, you know you're good enough and you don't need someone else to tell you that. I think you wouldn't need that. But what you're doing, you're making this podcast, and I know how much you love talking about things and you just enjoy making these difficult conversations easier. So this is what you do for the passion that you have, not because you're not doing it because you'll get more likes. I know, like, this is something that adds on to it, but you enjoy doing it. So I think if you can regulate yourself enough, and again, I would highly emphasize that at this day and age, with all of things that are happening and all of things that are going on, that you should really go to therapy. And once you do that, you'll realize that the validation that you need can come from yourself. The fidgeting that you need, the constant willingness to go to social media that you need is related to your own mental health issues, and that they can be solved. And once you can solve them, it would be much more easier to make social media beneficial for you and avoid all those harms that we've discussed just now.
I know that this is interesting. I like it, but for me, I love when we disagree. So I like this that you are focusing a lot on the individual, but
Yeah,
it is a biological feature in us to receive validation. It's literally a feature for us to be in tribes, for us to have these dopamine hits. Why do we do what we do? Right? Because we get a dopamine hit, and dopamine
yeah,
hit is our body's way of telling us to do more of that. That's good for you. And
yeah,
the social media manipulated that in trying to give us fake dopamine hits for stuff that does not bring any real value. And that's where the problem lies, that you can try to tell everyone that no, it's not external validation. I don't believe in external validation, you know that, but I
yeah,
still look at those likes because I'm like, you know what, my business is booming or something like that. It's not just about me, it's about my brand. Then everything is, but even then it becomes difficult. A good example of this would be, there was this WhatsApp group I used to join. It was about the football, right? It was a lot about football, and recently I left it because there was a lot of conversation that the season hasn't started yet, so there was a lot of speculation and stupid conversation that I didn't want. I felt like there was no value, and the problem with me is if there are 150, 200 messages, I will read all of them. I cannot just open and close it like most of you can. I have this problem that I want to read it, so I left the group. And when I left the group, you have no idea, my WhatsApp usage actually went down because now there's not many groups. The other group that we have is a general group in which max there are like 50 messages, people just bantering each other, and then it stops. But that group was pretty active, and because of that, I was always on WhatsApp looking at the video, and now suddenly it's gone. So that dopamine hit is gone of the banter we used to do with each other, of a comeback, of a reply, and now suddenly I have more time. I feel more fresher. I didn't change anything about myself. I didn't need to go to therapy or regulate my emotions. That external thing was actually affecting me a lot. And you realize that once you remove it. And that is exactly why I like this concept of disconnecting, at intentionally disconnecting. Because when you intentionally disconnect, you realize what you're missing out on. It's the argument that you make, right? How do you know there was no mental health issues in the past if you were not recording it? If you were not recording it, then you don't know if there wasn't. Same thing, if you've never been authentically, truly offline, how do you know what you're missing out on?
yeah. No, I get it. Different things work for different people. for you leaving the group helped. And I wouldn't stop anyone from doing these things, because if it helps for you, if it works for you, it's fine. I'm nobody to tell you what to do. But I also think that despite your arguments about tribalism and wanting that validation, I'm not denying that. But I also think that you can train your thoughts. You can train how you want things to go. Um, Even if you take social media out of it, you generally want people to appreciate you. If you worked on something, you worked hard on it, you want people to like that, you want people to appreciate it. I get it. But you can also limit it in a way that it shouldn't affect you. Once it starts affecting you, it becomes a problem. Again, checking likes is okay. You wanting to know how many people liked it, or just checking the reaction, it's fine. But once it starts affecting you, I think you need to look inwards. And again, I strongly believe that self love and understanding these things, understanding mental health issues is important, and these things can be solved. It's not that hard, as hard as we think it is.
I understand your point of view, and I think that is one part of what you need to do. But there's, of course, there's also this other part that I feel like it's engineered in a way. It's a sandbox that is rigged. It's a game you are meant to fail. And why I say that is because a lot of YouTubers, uh, there's a whole group of YouTubers who stopped creating content, millions of subscribers. They were like, it was getting to us. The constant need to upload new content to make money was getting too much to us. Some of them left. There was this lady who was an influencer, and she left to go back to a 9 to 5. She was like, the 9 to 5 is so much easier than being an influencer, because now I know I can check in and I can check out and I can earn money to just sustain my lifestyle. But with an influencer, you have to be constantly online, share everything about you, always say. And they like that because that's what people want. They want to be a part of your lives, and you have to commit to giving them that part. And that comes at a cost. You have online trolling, you have all of that stuff. So for me, the sandbox is rigged, and that's what it really bothers me. But we have talked about that a lot, so let's move towards you. You're saying that self-regulation is important and you strongly believe it's possible, so I would like to ask you, do you disconnect? Or if you don't, how do you handle social media or being always online getting to you?
Um, my way of doing things is, I'm not saying I'm handling it perfectly, but I try to check my mood after a few days. Um, for example, if this need of doing something or just going online again and again, you tend to notice your mood changing. I know there are other stuff going on, and but you do realize that the constant need that your subconscious is telling you something, and that doesn't really adds up. What I do is, after a little while, I try to look inwards and try to think what is affecting me, what thoughts I have, and how, like, does it make sense or not. If I'm thinking of going on Instagram and starting to watch reels, like the loop that we go in, I again, in the moment, I might do, and I might go to these websites. But once I look back and look towards the things I did, I realize what I'm doing wrong. So you might know this already. I used to be very active on Twitter. I used to follow whatever was going on. I used to tweet very regularly. But after a while, I did realize that it was getting to me in a way that I was constantly engaging in the same things. I was I was engaging with trolls. I was trying to get back at people. So I realized that there was something that's wrong, and that needs to be fixed. Once I realized that, it became very easy for me to, I wouldn't say quit, because I still have the app, but I have that the ability to log out, as you might call it. So similarly, for other social medias as well, the trying to use an alternate for it. For example, if I'm using too much of Instagram, I tend to go to YouTube and find videos that would actually help me, and I think that wouldn't affect my mood in a way it was affecting before. So again, I'm emphasizing a lot on self regulation, because I think at the end of the day, if you're able to self regulate, however, whatever way it works for you, disconnecting would be one way. but whatever way it works for you, you can do that. And once you can achieve that, I think it would do wonders for you.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you, but it's very difficult to get there, get where you are. So I would like to share two things. Uh,
Yeah.
One, I love your self regulation because I'm jealous of your self regulation because my wife has the same. And this is not about being online; it's about food. With social media and everything, I might have a little bit of discipline, right? But with food, I have zero discipline. My wife, somehow, amazing. And it always made me jealous because all she would do is she would talk a little bit like you. She'd be like, Ahad, just stop eating when you're full. And I'm like, this it's not that easy. It's not that easy. I'm never full. That's the problem. So I would go somewhere, I would eat out. There is this wonderful place, and there's this very interesting Dutch creation. It's called a kapsalon. That also in Dutch means a barber. I don't know why, but both of them in the dish and the barber's name is the same. So this dish
Mhm.
is basically shawarma or doner. You must know that one of those two, right? So a
Yeah.
shawarma or a doner. So it is a plate of fries. Then you have the meat. Then you have some salad on top, and then you have cheese, and then you blow towards the cheese to melt it, and it's all in an aluminium, what do you call it, that bag, box, aluminum box. So you can imagine how calorie dense that thing is and how empty calorie dense that thing is. So
Yeah.
it's right here, 10 minutes away from my house by walk. So I find an excuse. I tell my wife, you know what, I'm going to go for my walk. And I go there and I eat it and I come back and I go like, that was a wonderful 1 hour walk, So I've done that a lot and I'm not proud of it, but I've done that a lot because for me that thing gives me comfort,
Yeah.
like that comfort normal household food doesn't give me. But even in household foods, when I cook food, my wife has this much of a portion, I have this much of a portion, and she's like, why can't you just have this much of a portion? I'm like, let me try. I try, but I'm still hungry, and then I overeat. So my wife says, "Oh, it's very easy. Just know yourself. You should be feeling full. Count the calories." And I'm like, "It's not that easy. It's not that easy to convince myself." And that's something I'm still working on right now. I'm trying to go to a dietist and try to understand from a dietist, okay, what works for me, what doesn't work for me. But my point about that is to bring it back to the online conversation. It's a very honorable thing to self-regulate, but it's a thing that is a privilege in itself because a
Sure.
lot of people don't have that. And why don't they have that is because human beings by nature are lazy species. There's actually this phenomena called the law of least effort. If I will give you an example, if you are stranded in the middle of nowhere and you're thirsty, right, and then there's a river right next to you and then there's a river across the mountain, where would you drink your water?
The one right next to me.
Humans will always go for the path easiest path or the path with the least effort because that's how we're built, and that's exactly why these tools are annoying because these tools exploit the law of least effort. They make it so easy for you to do anything that it becomes very difficult for you to self-regulate, and it's wonderful that you can do it. And I think I also agree with you that I would love to see a day when I could just go on social media, post a little bit, comment on my friends, connect with them because that's what it's there for, actually. And then be able to log out and just check in a
Yeah.
few days later to see how my friends are doing. But easier said than done.
I mean, yeah, the companies are helping in a way. I mean, I don't trust companies because in a capitalistic system, at the end of the day, all they want is profit, and
Yeah.
it's very hard to get that balance. But I also think there are good things that are happening. Digital well-being has gotten a lot better. Even the apps would remind you. Like I do have that reminder on Facebook that if I'm using it for like 20 or 30 minutes in a day, it would remind me. So again, I'm not saying they're the perfect solution, but you're getting more and more things. And about the point you made about food, I think that is a very good example in a way that, again, getting lean or getting fit requires a lot of effort too. And different diets work for different people. Like, I think I've mentioned on this podcast before as well that I started doing ketogenic diet. It did work for me as well, but I realized that it's not for me. So I think different techniques work for different people. Another thing that I do, which I do with food and with social media, is I don't deprive myself of that thing. So if I want to eat something sweet, if I want to eat something that has a lot of calories, I wouldn't say no to it, but I would prioritize my normal meals first. I would have a proper lunch, I would have a proper dinner, I would have a proper breakfast. After that, if I feel like eating something and I've taken a gap of like an hour or two, I might go to eat something. And I wouldn't stop myself from eating it, but I would say that maybe I could slow that down, maybe take a couple of bites and see if I'm still hungry. Again, I'm not telling myself that you only have to eat those couple of bites and stop, but I'm just trying to take it slow. Once you take it slow, you start realizing, wait, that maybe you're not that hungry. So similarly, social media, if I would open that app and just log out of it, or just turn my phone down, so and think of it like, do I really need to go back, or is there something I can do better, or is there something I would do for dopamine and that would still help me? If I can come up with a solution, sure, I'd go with that. If I cannot, I'll continue doing that. But if you start doing that again and again, there would be a time that it would be easier to self regulate yourself. Again, this technique works for me, it might not work for you, but I'm just saying there are several different techniques and you can try different things, and something should work for you.
No, I think that's wonderful advice, because what I hear from you is that you are also putting barriers in place, right? You're like, I
Yeah.
have barriers, I'm stopping myself. I'm like, okay, if I eat my proper meals and then I'm still hungry, then I'm gonna think about it. And even if I'm hungry, I'm just gonna eat a few bites to see if I'm still hungry, I'm gonna eat about. Those are basically barriers you're putting in place. And social media also
Sure.
needs to have these barriers in place. You talked about timers and digital well-being, but I have a really interesting question for you. Have you seen the apps do that, or is that the hardware maker doing it?
No, it's the apps doing it as well.
No,
Uh,
the app timer is by Samsung itself, for example. If you
no,
put in an app timer, yeah, it's
the
not
app
really.
timer isn't is within the app as well. So Instagram has it, Facebook has it.
I didn't know.
Uh,
I didn't see that. I only saw like in my digital well-being, I can use 15 minutes of screen time and then close it from Samsung's UI. So Samsung does not allow me to open the app anymore. Inside Facebook itself, I've never seen an option of Facebook letting me close the app after 15 minutes or that kind of timer. I've never seen it in any of the settings.
no, it is there. It would give you a small task, a notification that, do you still want to use it, or do you want to dismiss this notification? Again, you can dismiss it, but it does
Ah,
tell you.
okay, okay. That's interesting. I did not know that, because for me the timers are all on the hardware side, and that makes sense to me from a profitable point of view, because yeah, they don't care if you're on apps a lot or
Yeah.
not, because they care that you bought their product. That's all they care about. They're like, yeah, we took 1,000 euros out of you, and now you use it or not, it doesn't bother us. So here are some tools for you to limit all your app use, and 2 years later, buy us again, please. So so from their point of view, it's not in their immediate disinterest to
No, but
stop
I
us from
think
using it.
you living in Europe would know this better than me, that this European Union cracking down on these tech companies, and you see tech CEOs being on the chair and being asked questions. I think that has a big role to play. And also, I think they're having their existential crisis of sorts, that Meta is worried that they'll survive or not. And similarly, all these social media apps. So they have to do these things out of compulsion, not because it's profitable.
Yeah, that's true. That could be the case, but that's another digression out of
Yeah.
the topic. I think European Union. One thing I really like about living in Europe is this, that they really prioritize human well-being a lot. But that is because they have everything else covered, right? So at the start of the conversation, you actually talked about this. You said, "Okay, the value of WhatsApp in Asia is unparalleled because you are able to make a living." But that's the thing: you are able to make a living is not something that we have to worry about here. Everyone can
Yeah.
make a living here. And then that's an addition on top. If you want to build a business, great, go for social media. But not everyone wants to or needs to build a business to survive. They can do the minimum wage job and still be able to afford a house, food, and a little bit of luxuries. But in Pakistan or in South Asia, some people have to go to these resorts because there's nothing else around them. The labor is so cheap that people are not willing to pay you a lot of money to work, and maybe online you might be able to find better clients. So that livelihood aspect does change things a bit. I do get that, but the for me personally, for you the pros outweigh the cons. For me personally, in the condition that I am in, the cons and the pros are very equal, and that's why I try to reduce the cons as much as I can, because it's there are a lot of things that are wonderful about being always connected, like working virtually. I give trainings virtually. I've been able to increase my income as a person by being able to work remotely for one organization, but by also training another organization without having to go there and from the comfort of my own house, save money on commute. Those are things that are amazing by being online, staying connected with people who you don't stay connected with. What you are doing is thanks to technology and being online, right? We won't be able to do this because we're not physically together. So there are a lot of benefits in my eyes that are there, which I'm not denying. But the cons, such as the fear of missing out or checking everything, like now being an entrepreneur, I always want to look for my next client. So now again, out of compulsion, and this is compulsion I'm saying, every morning or every afternoon, every few hours, I go online, I check LinkedIn, I scroll through some job listings, I check the other gig website, and I check if there's some new gig for me. I don't need it. I'm booked till the end of the year with my current client, but I still just go check it. I'm like, what if there's something more interesting? And this is what I hated about it. This is not intentional. I don't need it, but my the ease of the access trumps my awareness and my intentionality, that it tells me, you know what, it's just going to be a few minutes, just go check it. And that few minutes becomes few minutes every hour, turns out to be an hour a day.
I think this is I think this is generally where we tend to disagree. You're someone who likes to make systems, and you want to you prefer thing being imposed by institutions. I'm someone who believes that until that individual understands the pros and cons and tries to make an effort or at least realizes it, the difference cannot come. I keep emphasizing that you can force people to do things, but in a democratic government, you also know that someone who's making all these policies which people are against, they would be voted out eventually. So if that individual doesn't realize what these policies mean and what these rules mean, I think they're they're not useful in that aspect.
I agree with that aspect. I would like to correct you a little bit, and I think we're running at the end, and this is becoming a very big of a digression, but I think this is a very interesting conversation. That's why I'm letting this digression happen. I don't believe institutions should control people. I believe institutions help people make better decisions, like education, for example. You can argue as much as you want, but if there was no compulsion for education, then people will not get educated. There was no intrinsic need for people to be educated. In Europe, for example, it's by law. If you don't send your child to school, the police comes to your house. Childcare services comes to your house. They will take your child away if you don't send him to school. And this is one of the reasons why they all are educated. In Pakistan, there is no such thing. And that's exactly why they don't prefer doing it. They're like, you know what? Why send my child to school? Why pay for it? Why do all of that stuff? Even not pay for it. There is a Citizens Foundation which teaches your child for free. Yet the parents don't send their kids. So it's not about the money. It's about that so people are slow moving, and organizations can help nudge them in the right direction. And I'm completely with you. I completely think that humans should be completely capable by themselves. But I'm also realistic in saying that not everyone has the mental capacity or the ability to be completely themselves yet. And that's where organizations come in. Organizations are there to empower you, to equip you with the right tools and decisions so that you can become a better version of yourself. And that's why democracy works really well. These are policies they think that is going to work for you, and if it works, they get reelected. If it doesn't work, they get kicked out, and someone else comes in who tries to impress them again. And I think from that perspective, it's a hand in hand thing, that you need to be able to understand what works for you, but you also need to have people who are supporting you and empowering you, because if they don't, then you might not always make the right decision. If it was that easy, then none of us would be obese, right? None of us would have financial issues. None of us would be drug addicts. All of that wouldn't happen if people knew what was good for them.
Yeah, again, I wouldn't say that there shouldn't be harsh rules, and there's a reason that we say the monopoly of violence belongs to the state, because states should have the power to intervene and intervene in violent ways if need be, because they are the ones that are responsible to take care of the greater good of the society. So I get that, but I also think that. The more research we're getting, the more we're finding out that uh, forcing people to do things doesn't really work. So I'm not saying that it shouldn't happen at all. It should happen in the short term, but our ultimate goal should always be to educate people in a way that if someone doesn't want to send their child to school, I think there's something fundamentally wrong with them, and it needs to be taken care of on urgent basis. So I think that is such a basic thing that people should know this by now. So again, I would emphasize more on trying to educate people, and the same goes with social media, trying to tell people of the harms. And I think this is also on social media's credit that people, more influencers, and there are a lot of people, at least who I follow, are telling their followers and their followers that these things can have their disadvantages. Like, there's an influencer that I really like. They recently made a video that I would still make content, but I might not be as consistent. But these followers also are learning with them, so it's good in a way that we're all learning together and using the same social media to make it a tool that benefits us more than it harms us. So I think it is possible. We do need a leap of faith, and we do need to be realistic about it, but we also shouldn't give up hope that we cannot fix this.
No, that I agree. I think that's very nice. Those kind of influences, to be fair, are in the minority, because most influencers are playing trying to crack the algorithm, trying to make something happen, trying to I see people just flaunting same things again and again just to get all the likes and everything, because that's how they make money. So it's become a thing that it's not just about creating content anymore. It's also about the fact that you make money from it, and that changes it, right? If it was for free, like, if you didn't have any motivation, extrinsic motivation like money, but intrinsic motivation like to share content or like to share your things, social media will be a completely different place. Then people who are actually interested in doing these things will be doing, like teachers, for example. If this would be the case, then everyone would become a teacher, right? But teacher doesn't pay a lot, and that's exactly why only people who are really interested become teachers and trainers, because they're like, you know what, it gives us energy. Not the money is good, it's a plus point, but it's not the reason. If that was the reason, then I would be working in corporate instead of education. And that's the same with here. The money is so much in certain cases, people are trying to run for that instead of running for the fact that, okay, am I sharing something valuable? But I think that that is always going to be the case. Technology will always have a pro and a con, as you said, and we would like to empower and educate people, but as you said yourself, if there's something fundamentally wrong with someone because they don't want to educate their child and we should educate them, is compulsion by itself. And if they don't want to, that's their choice. But in certain things, as a society, we cannot accept those choices. You cannot kill someone, you cannot not educate someone, and these are the rules we grow with. If 20 years in the past, 50 years in the past, education was not that important, 200 years in the past, killing someone was not punishable till an extent if the person was a different color, right? So it keeps going back. We keep, as you said, we keep growing and we keep learning. And I feel like institutions shape your learning more than the individual can shape the institution. If you notice, South Asia, there was a Muslim leadership while there was a Hindu majority population, and it was a lot top down rather than bottom up. If it was bottom up, then then they would become Hindus after a while, right? But that didn't happen because it
No,
was
it
top down.
failed.
Yeah, it did fail. Till an extent it failed, because you have a lot of organizations where it worked, like for certain generations. We're forgetting that that leadership was there for thousands of years, hundreds of years, not just for a couple of years. And in certain cases there was a golden age, in certain cases there wasn't. So that is more of a succession issue rather than a leadership issue. In the same with Khmer, which was Cambodia, you had a Hindu leadership and you had Hindu population, and that also failed because the leaders were not good. But in certain cases some leaders were great, and then it worked. But that is a point for some other time. Let's close out the conversation. For me, I think I've said most I wanted to say. I really enjoyed this conversation because for the first time we were on the opposite ends of something, and that led to such an easy conversation that an hour passed by without me even feeling it. So I do not have anything to say. I will try not to push you back on whatever you say. So what are your last thoughts?
And I think I would reiterate to the point that try always to look inwards. If you're realizing, if you're watching this podcast, you probably already know that there are a lot of harms, and I think you've already taken the first step, if not more, that you know that you need to control it. And if you're here, if you've listened to this podcast, you probably already know that there are ways to regulate yourself. And again, prioritize your mental health. And uh, if therapy is what you need to control it, go with that. But try to look inwards, and you should always believe that you can fix it. This endless loop of going into one social media website and the other, it can be fixed, but you need to learn the art of self regulation, and it's not as difficult as you might think it is.
All right, great. That's amazing. Thank you so much for everything, Mudassir. I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm looking forward to having you back for the Fediverse. I think that's also
Yeah,
going to be a
I'm
very
excited
interesting
for that.
conversation. And till then, everyone else, thank you so much for listening. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned more today than you did yesterday. And bye bye.